The vet looked afraid as he told the woman that he didn't think her pet was a cat. His eyes seemed to be nervously scanning the room for an exit. "What?" the woman asked. The vet repeated that this wasn't a cat while rushing around the desk to grab his phone. "You need to get away now," he said. The vet shouted into his phone while Emily stared at him in disbelief. She could hear the fear in his voice. Fortunately, the animal in question was still unconscious from the medication it had been injected with. Emily could not understand his extreme reaction to her cat. "Please, Ms. Willow, wait outside. I'll be just a minute," he said. She had no idea of the trouble that was to follow. Emily Willow was a single mother of a 5-year-old daughter, Sabrina, and she had a very busy life juggling work and her parental responsibilities. Her days were a blur of activity. She had no family and few friends nearby, so she was left to deal with the overwhelming responsibilities of work and parenting all by herself. Emily had heard from the locals that the woods nearby were serene and calming, and one Saturday morning she decided to go there for a hike. She was hoping it would help alleviate her stress. She left early and arrived at the woods just in time to watch the beautiful sunrise. As she headed out for her hike, she had no idea of what she would find that day. She felt herself starting to relax as she made her way along the hiking trail, surrounded by the sights and sounds of ancient trees rustling and birds singing. Despite feeling less stressed and rushed, she was still preoccupied with the events of the week. Unfortunately, things were about to get more difficult for the little family. Most single parents faced the same issues Emily did. Balancing work and financial stresses with bringing up a child on your own is a heavy load to bear for anyone. Her hike in the woods was intended to help her relax and get rid of some of her stress. Instead, unfortunately, it would add further complications to her already complicated life. Lost in her own thoughts, Emily walked deeper and deeper into the maze of trees. She didn't realize just how far into the woods she was going. She became anxious when reality dawned on her, and she realized how far into the woods she had unknowingly gone. Then she heard what sounded like faint meowing in the distance. Emily was curious and concerned about the animal she heard crying in the distance. As she pushed her way into the underbrush, she spotted a tiny, filthy kitten. The little animal looked starving and was barely able to move. Emily was overcome with emotion as she bent down to get a closer look and saw the terror in the little one's eyes. Emily's maternal instinct kicked in, and she carefully picked up the little animal. Despite her intuition telling her not to, she decided to take it home with her. The little creature provided her with a temporary reprieve from her own problems. She was also hoping that it would bring some joy to her daughter's life. Emily made a bed for the kitten in the living room. That night, as she lay in bed, she heard strange noises coming from the living room. They did not sound like the noises kittens make. She fearfully made her way to the living room to find that the helpless, timid creature she encountered in the woods had turned into a snarling, aggressive beast. Worry crept into the mom's heart as she wondered if she had made a terrible mistake. As the night wore on, she heard the kitten's chilling sounds grow louder and more unsettling. Her fears reached their peak the following morning when she saw the creature chase after Sabrina, who had been innocently playing with it. It seemed as though something primal had taken over the kitten, and Emily couldn't ignore the growing unease in her gut. Fearful that the kitten might be rabid or feral, Emily decided to take it to the vet. As she walked into the clinic, carrying the now calmer kitten in a pet carrier, she noticed that the vet, Dr. Reynolds, appeared fascinated by the small animal. Examining the kitten carefully, Dr. Reynolds seemed to be hiding something from Emily. He mumbled to himself, his brow furrowed, and then hurriedly left the room to make a phone call. Emily overheard snippets of the conversation, words like unprecedented and anomaly, and she couldn't help but feel a shiver of unease. But things got even more bizarre when the vet mentioned, "I think it belongs to him." He came into the room afterward, visibly shaken. He shared a look with Emily before saying, "Miss Willow, I don't think this is a cat." He took a shaky step back with broadened eyes. His fingers trembled, and his eyes looked all over the room as if searching for an exit. "What?" Emily asked, but even she couldn't deny that she'd had her doubts. "Not a cat," the vet repeated, going around his desk to grab his phone again. The kitten was rousing. "You need to get away now." Emily stared in disbelief as the vet started spewing words into his phone, the fear in his eyes evident as he continued speaking. The kitten was coming too, snarling as it took in its surroundings. "Please, Miss Willow," the vet called again. "Wait outside. I'll just be a minute." Emily couldn't understand why he would have such a reaction to a mere kitten. Her life was about to change forever. Emily was still trying to figure out what was happening when the doors to the clinic flew open. The clinic's waiting room, which was silent before, was suddenly abuzz with activity as the authorities arrived in haste. Officers, animal control officers, and even a few government agents descended upon the premises. Emily watched in astonishment as they sealed off the examination room, speaking in hushed tones. Dr. Reynolds returned, his face pale, and told Emily to stay put while he stepped outside to confer with the authorities. As Emily anxiously waited, her mind raced with questions. What had she stumbled upon in the woods, and why were they treating this kitten as something more than an ordinary cat? The minutes dragged on, and Emily's worry grew. Little did she know that the simple act of rescuing a kitten from the woods had thrust her into an unsettling case that would challenge everything she thought she knew about her quiet town. Her heart raced as she and her daughter left the vet's office, flanked by stern-looking officers. But as they were leaving, Dr. Reynolds pulled her aside with a cryptic warning, urging her to get a bodyguard. "They'll be coming for you now," he added. The unease in her gut grew with each passing moment, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary was unfolding before her. As she stepped out of the clinic, she found herself face to face with an expensive black SUV parked just outside the entrance. A tall man and a poised woman stood beside the vehicle, their demeanor oozing authority. The vet's warning replayed in her mind. They exchanged brief words with the authorities, who seemed to be strangely cooperative. It was as if they were expecting this peculiar encounter. Emily and Sabrina were led toward the waiting SUV, where the man and woman introduced themselves as Mr. and Mrs. Stanton. They didn't explain further, only asked the mom and daughter to step into the vehicle. Emily had no other choice. She looked at the officers behind her. Each of them expected her to follow the instructions she'd been given. None looked ready to step in and defuse the confrontation. What was happening here? Emily and her daughter stepped into the vehicle. Though modern and covered in exquisite leather and glossy screens, the interior was cold and utilitarian. The driver started the engine, and the SUV lumbered down the road, taking the mom and daughter out of town and into the very woods where Emily had found the kitten. The ride went on for a few minutes, with nothing but utter silence between Emily and the two individuals who had asked her into the vehicle. Emily held her daughter close as trees fluttered by. Behind their vehicle, a police cruiser followed silently. Emily's heart started pounding louder, and she had to take a deep breath to calm it. She couldn't lose her cool like this when her daughter needed her. It was then that the woman beside her spoke. She explained that she and the man represented a very wealthy and enigmatic individual who had been desperately searching for a missing pet. It didn't take long for Emily to realize that they were talking about the kitten she had found in the woods, the very same kitten that had transformed into a ferocious creature in her home. The man chimed in, confirming the woman's claims. He handed Emily a police report of the same, and after reading it carefully, Emily nodded. The two explained that the gentleman in question had reported the disappearance of one of his pets, an incredibly rare breed of Argentinian predator known as the jaguarundi. Emily was left in awe, her mind struggling to comprehend the situation. She had unknowingly stumbled upon a creature that belonged to a wealthy and equally influential individual. The Stantons reassured Emily that their employer was not angry with her, but grateful for her role in the kitten's rescue. They were there to offer their thanks and ensure the safe return of the jaguarundi to its rightful owner. Still, Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something was off about the whole situation. As they drove to an opulent mansion nestled deep within the outskirts of the woods, Emily's anxiety grew. She couldn't help but wonder why someone would keep such a dangerous animal as a pet. and why they were so eager to recover it. The Stantons shared few details, maintaining an air of mystery around their employer, whom they referred to as the benefactor. Upon arriving at the mansion, Emily and Sabrina were ushered inside and greeted by a man of immense prestige. He introduced himself simply as Mr. Carmichael, a name that carried weight in the business and political circles of the town. His gratitude toward Emily was expressed extravagantly, with promises of financial assistance and support for her and Sabrina. As they sat in Mr. Carmichael's lavish living room, sipping on expensive tea, he shared the story of the Jaguarundi. It was a rare and valuable feline breed, known only to a select few collectors around the world. Mr. Carmichael had acquired the kitten as part of a collection of exotic creatures. Still, it had somehow escaped into the woods, creating a considerable stir in his otherwise well-organized world. Emily couldn't help but feel a mix of emotions: relief, awe, and a sense of dread at the strange turn her life had taken. As the evening wore on, Mr. Carmichael's intentions became clearer. He wanted to offer Emily a substantial financial reward for rescuing the Jaguarundi. He also expressed interest in helping her secure a more stable life for herself and Sabrina, offering her an employment opportunity at one of his businesses in town, something that would allow her to provide for Sabrina. Emily was torn. The offer was tempting, and it could drastically improve their lives. But she couldn't shake the feeling that there were secrets hidden beneath the surface of Mr. Carmichael's generosity. It all seemed too good to be true. What made it weirder was that the authorities, who had accompanied them to the mansion, stood by, watching the unfolding drama with keen interest. Emily faced a difficult decision. Should she accept Mr. Carmichael's offer and secure a brighter future for herself and her daughter, or should she dig deeper into the mystery of the Jaguarundi and the enigmatic benefactor who seemed to be orchestrating their lives? She sat down with her daughter asleep on her lap, wondering the best way forward as the minutes ticked by. If it were you, what would you do?